Welcome to the Wiser Wealth Management Roundtable, where we believe the best financial advice should always be conflict-free. I'm your host, Casey Smith. Guiding you to financial freedom today is Jordan Sute and a special guest, Kathleen Smith. No relation.
Right.
Hi, Kathleen. How are you?
I am doing great this morning. Thank you.
Jordan?
Good. How are you?
Good. And as a reminder, Jordan is from Sute CPA, just down the street.
Yep.
Sort of.
Yeah. In Kennesaw.
In Kennesaw.
Yeah.
Used to be two different towns. Now they just blended together by a lot of car dealerships.
Yep. Exactly right. Cobb Parkway. Yep. Leads you straight there.
And Kathleen is joining us from the Wellstar Foundation.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Kathleen, what is your title at the Wellstar Foundation?
I'm the Regional Development Officer for Wellstar Spalding Regional Hospital way down in Griffin, and also Wellstar Sylvan Grove Hospital way down further in Jackson, Georgia.
Jackson, Georgia. Okay, thank you. So our podcast series we're doing this quarter is all focused on tax, simply because tax planning starts now. You can't really deal with taxes or change your tax return much after the first of the year. So this is a great time to be looking at portfolios for tax loss harvesting and looking for other ways to lower your tax bill. This series for this one and the last podcast we did has been focused on tax credits to help the community. And there's so many different ways to do this, but today I want to focus on two, which is one is charitable giving, which we'll get to a little bit later. And then two is the Georgia Heart Program. And Kathleen, why don't you kind of start us off and talk a little bit about the Georgia Heart Program and how it works?
Sure. Georgia Heart is it's actually mainly for the Georgia Rural Hospital State Tax Credit Program. Easier way to remember is Georgia Heart. And it is a way that individuals, married couples, individuals with pass-through organizations or C-Corps or businesses can actually divert part of their state income tax and put them into rural hospitals around the state of Georgia in order to support those hospitals and the communities that they serve. And the state of Georgia is willing to give up $60 million a year of their state income tax to these individuals or entities that want to put the money in various communities. And it's a way for them to do that.
So why is this needed?
Well, Georgia was either number 3 or number 4 for a long time in this country for losing rural hospitals. They were closing at a pretty rapid rate. In fact, when the program was created by the Georgia State Legislature, Georgia had lost between 7 and 9 hospitals that had closed over a 3-year period. So they decided that one of the best ways to do this was to allow people to use their own state income tax to support these hospitals and give them the funds to keep themselves open and support the communities that they're in. Because when a hospital closes, not only does everyone in that community lose their hospital and usually have to travel 35 to 45 minutes away to another hospital, but the county that they're in loses a huge revenue source. People lose their jobs, and the nearest community hospital suddenly is taking a great influx of additional patients, which puts a huge burden on them. So it was a way to try and stem the closing of these hospitals, and I'm happy to say it did just that.
So in the Wellstar program, the only hospital is the Sylvan Grove.
Sylvan Grove, and Wellstar Sylvan Grove Hospital is the only rural hospital that Wellstar owns. To be considered a rural hospital, a hospital has to be in a county that has under 26,000 population. So these are your smallest areas in Georgia. So Wellstar Sylvan Grove in beautiful downtown Jackson is Wellstar's hospital, and it's Wellstar's oldest hospital facility. It was built in 1962, and this program has been a real godsend for them. We've gotten a lot of new services. We've gotten a lot of new capital building, and we have a lot of future plans for the hospital and the community that probably would have happened in Wellstar years out, but this program allowed us to pull it up and do it all right now.
How long has this program existed?
2017 is when the first year for the program, and the program right now is scheduled to end in 2024.
How have the revenues been used at your hospital in Sylvan?
Primarily for capital and also for services. My best story I can tell you is that we took the funding from 1 year and we decided to completely rebuild the emergency room, upgrade all the equipment, rebuild the emergency room, expand it. And we did that, and we opened it in December of 2019. And COVID hit in February, the 2020, and this became a godsend for that community because they had everything that was needed to meet that pandemic in that community, thanks to this program.
That's great. So there is one restriction that's executive compensation, I believe, from the funds. So we're not padding the pockets of rural hospital executives, which is, I don't know, probably not that much money anyway, being an
Right.
executive at a rural hospital. Okay, so tell us a little bit more about Sylvan itself. I think you mentioned earlier it was built in 1962.
1962 is when the hospital was built. Today, it is an acute care hospital in that it has a 24-hour emergency room. It has full imaging capabilities and lab capabilities. The hospital itself has 26 rooms, but the primary function of the inpatient rooms is as a critical access hospital. And a critical access hospital is really for people who are going out of a hospital like a Kennestone or a North Fulton or a Cobb or Spalding Regional in Griffin. And they have had hip replacement or joint replacement or a stroke. They're recovering and they're not ready to be able to take care of themselves in their home. So they can go to a critical access hospital and receive the care they need, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and they can stay there for weeks while they recover and become strong enough to then be able to go home. And so that's what Sylvan Grove primary function for their inpatient rooms is. And they service a 9-county area south of Atlanta.
So let's back up a second and talk a little about the Wellstar Foundation, which helps promote growth and research and different items within the hospital, including supporting its own employees in crisis. So many people think that if you go to the hospital, oh, these people just make tons of money. I see these invoices and these bills, and this is how much the hospital is making. And actually, Wellstar is a nonprofit.
Not for profit. Yes, it is.
Correct.
Yes, it is.
Or not for profit. Thank you for correcting me. Walk us through a little bit. Why are these funds needed? Why can't you just, if you're making millions of dollars a patient, I say that with sarcasm.
First of all, every penny that we take in through any of the hospitals, anything that's left at the end of the year has to be put back into the hospitals. It has to be put into our hospital system, and that's a law. And we get audited every year, so that's taken a close look at. What the foundation is able to do is to make sure that today's technology, as it grows practically annually now, and new medical equipment comes out, new medical services come out, that we can actually add those services, provide a higher quality medical care, and do it much faster thanks to the support of the foundation funds. So we can actually take care of communities much better. And also we can take a look at what in each community is really needed community by community, because they're not all the same. And then we can focus funds on that need, such as behavioral health, which is a huge issue right now, and looking to help different areas in Georgia through behavioral health support and maybe new facilities. And that's something Wellstar can do with the help of the foundation.
I believe that one of the last things that was funded, if I remember correctly, was basically training for doctors to where you're in a bad auto accident and you end up in a rural hospital, but they don't have the expertise there to make those emergency surgeries, that they could actually potentially in the future do it from Kennestone right down the street, where the doctor is at Kennestone, but the robot that he's controlling is in the rural hospital.
Right.
I mean,
wild.
I don't know if you want to be that patient, but maybe you would be if that's all you got.
Yeah.
It's something we do at most of our hospitals right now, including the hospitals very much in the south of Atlanta, is we have telemedicine. So if you come into the emergency room, say at Spalding Regional, and you're suspected of having a stroke, we have a stroke center. So we take you straight in for a CT. We don't have a full-time neurologist, but the neurologist that Wellstar does work with, they're on virtual, and they're reading your records, and they're looking at your records. And when you're in the emergency room, they are actually talking to your family or to you as a patient to let you know what's going on through a monitor. So even though they're up in Kennestone or at another hospital, they're treating other patients so that we can get you the treatment you need very, very quickly.
You're getting closer and closer to like Star Wars, Star Trek stuff, right? And technology has solved a lot of problems, not just in healthcare, but other industries as well. So again, the foundation, there's Wellstar Foundation, which helps bring in revenue to help do the things that maybe the hospital doesn't necessarily have the budget for. And then there's the Heart program, which is totally separate. This is run by another organization.
Correct. Georgia Heart is an organization that it manages the program for all 54 hospitals involved, and we interact with them on a regular basis. And again, 100% of the funds that come into Wellstar Sylvan Grove or any of the hospitals do go into that hospital and that community. It's
Yeah, that's a really good point, Kathleen, because in the Wellstar Foundation, a lot of times, and it's normal that you would give $1, but maybe 70 cents of that dollar or even 60 cents of that dollar actually go to the cause that you're very passionate about. The rest of it goes for paper and printers and rent and salaries, right? Well, in the Wellstar organization, all that's covered by the corporation itself. So when a dollar goes into the foundation, there's a dollar to spend.
Correct.
So it's the same way with the HEART program. A dollar goes in, there's a dollar to spend.
It's $1 goes in, but it's 97 cents. There is a 3% that goes to maintenance of the program that the state allows.
Okay. That's still a really good percentage compared to so many other options out
Right.
there. So let's say that we might be interested in doing this. Jordan?
Yeah.
How do we do it?
Super easy. So if you were listening to us a few weeks ago talk about Georgia Goal, it's a very similar process. You go to Georgia Heart's website and they essentially take care of everything for you. You apply through their site and then they're the ones who speak to the Department of Revenue. They let you know if you've been approved, if there's credits available. And then once you're approved, you write your check to Georgia Heart, and Georgia Heart distributes the funds to the hospital of your choice, unless they've met their cap, in which it could go to a different hospital or just an area where Georgia Heart sees a need. Super simple.
What's the program cap per year?
The state's cap is $60 million.
$60 million, but
Yes.
each hospital can't benefit more than $4 million.
$4 million, correct. That's the cap for every hospital.
Okay. So we have some bad news in that people have already done their planning.
Yeah. And
and 2021's closed.
yes, but 2022 is about to open in a couple of weeks.
Yes, it is. Georgia Heart will open the portal for 2022 tax year on November 1st. 9 a.m. on November 1st, people can go in and start registering there. All the hospitals are there. It will not let you get through your registration without picking a hospital, like Wellstar Sylvan Grove Hospital.
Right.
There's my plug. And you can get registered. And once you're registered and you receive your approval, you're good for the entire year.
Great. So let's walk back the tax credit again. So if I give the maximum for an individual is $5,000, a married couple can give $10,000. So let's say I give $10,000 and I owe $20,000 in my state tax.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that on my bottom line, I now owe $10,000 in state tax.
Correct. Yes.
So instead of paying your state tax to the general fund of Georgia, you're allowing this to be directed to benefit something that maybe
Yes.
you're passionate about, or maybe you just don't want Georgia to be spending your money.
Right. You get to put your tax dollars to work. And even better, this can work in conjunction with goal. So if it's not an either or here. You could choose goal and heart, I mean, you could max this out and up to $12,500 for an individual married couple that you could completely direct your tax dollars. It's awesome.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Wish you could do that with the federal government.
Yeah. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. All right. So then there's another aspect to this for businesses. Now, again, for 2021, it's closed. But if you were lucky enough to get into the program, you could give up to $10,000. But then next year in 2022, it's changing. So can we talk about that for a minute? If you're a business owner for 2022?
Yes. So new rule similar to goal as well. You can elect to be taxed at the business level for Georgia purposes only. So you're not doing anything different for federal. But if you choose to do that, you can give up to 75% of your Georgia tax liability to Heart. And then that's a federal deduction. And then it's a credit on your Georgia taxes at the business level. But that's an option. It's an election. You can either choose to do it the old way, the normal way, where the cap is $10,000, or you can choose to do it that way, where the cap is unlimited, up to 75% of your Georgia tax liability.
So then to figure out which is best for a business owner, we kind of go back to the same square as with the new goal program, and that you really have to run it two ways. Yeah. This is probably not something you do at home.
Probably not. Probably get a good CPA to help you run an either or.
I know one of those.
Yeah?
I just met one of those. And we tell every one of our business owners, everybody who participates, to please talk to your CPA, talk to a tax accountant, make sure that you know what you're doing before you do all this.
Right.
So instead of blindly filing taxes, even if you just owed $1,000 or $500 in Georgia tax, you could write a check for $500 or $1,000 into the program. So it allows you to really have each tax dollar have a purpose in your local community or nearby community in this case, because we don't live in a rural community here in Marietta, Georgia, or Atlanta. And the same way with the Georgia Gold program.
Mm-hmm. And even if you write a check and it's larger than your liability for the year, you get to carry forward that credit up to 5 years. So your dollars aren't going to waste with the hospitals, obviously, but also not on your taxes either.
Great. Mm-hmm. Well, Kathleen, anything else to add?
No, just that I hope everybody will consider the Georgia Rural Hospital Tax Credit Program. Georgia Heart. And if you do want to register or get more information, you can go to www.georgiaheart.org and get all the information you want. And if you do decide to participate, remember Jackson, Georgia, and Wellstar Sylvan Grove Hospital.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
So now I want to transition the conversation to, we're talking about tax credits, for Georgia Goal, but there's other tax credits you can get as well. And it's just general charitable giving. Most people will give money to an organization because it's part of their heart. They want to see that organization succeed. And a few people do give for the sole purpose of a tax deduction. Essentially, when you give an individual donation to an organization such as a church, you're getting back whatever your tax rate is. So if you're in the 37% or nearly 50% state tax or state and federal tax rate, essentially you're saving that on your tax return. So for every dollar, for most people, let's say it's 22 cents if you're in the 22% bracket or 24% bracket that you're saving. So it's never dollar for dollar, but it does have an impact on your return. It has an impact on other people's lives as well, which is part of the transition here. I want to talk to a group today, or I'm going to show you an interview with a group today that I think we all could learn from. In life, I feel like that there are people who enter life and whatever just happens, and they kind of take it and say, okay, well, this is just my life. Then there's people who enter life and they make sure that they make life happen. Life doesn't happen to them. And we read about them all the time in history books, right? And then there's another group of people that not only make life happen for them, but then they turn around and make sure life is happening for other people. And that's where I want to introduce my guests today. Today I have with me Humphrey Kanga.
Yes.
Hi, Humphrey.
Yes, Casey.
And I have McGee Spencer.
Hello.
And I've just learned your story, Humphrey, and I'm already impressed.
Thank you.
I've always wanted to say I've written a book. I've never had the patience to actually sit down to write a book. And you have two books.
Yes. Yes, I
one
do.
is The Journey Against All Odds.
Yes.
And the other one is Rebranding to Win.
Yes.
And the reason why I have you in today is to give an example of what happens when we give money beyond ourselves to other people. And there's a lot of organizations that will take our money, but I feel like there's very few organizations that are actually making a huge impact on other people's lives. So let's start a little bit about what you're doing with Kenya Connection Kids.
Thank you so much, Casey, for having me today. My name is Humphrey Kanga. I come from Kenya. I'm the founder and CEO of Kenya Connection Kids. Kenya Connection Kids is a ministry whose mission is to uplift the lives of the orphaned and the destitute children in Kenya. Let me say, close to 2 decades, we have been helping with the orphaned and destitute children. I came over in this country in 2001 because I wanted to empower myself for the ministry that I'm doing. And I was enlisted to Oskin Theological Seminary, and a church called Mercy Presbyterian Church sponsored me there. When I completed education, I already had received like a call I felt deep in my heart. Now that I'm grown through poverty, I would want to help other children who are like me when I was growing up. So we started an organization to help the orphaned and very needy children in Kenya. By then, those years, 700 people were dying in Kenya in 2001. 700 people were dying because of HIV/AIDS. I saw my own people of my own age, of my own generation die, and there were so many kids by then who were orphaned, total orphaned. So we started the program of sending them to school and having people to stand and walk the lonely journey of life with them. And let me say, it has been very successful. Currently, we have been able to build 4 children's homes. We have also sponsored over 300 children in school. And what I mean by sponsorship, I have friends in this country who give $35, who are given $35 a month to support a specific child, and they have grown a relationship. Back in Kenya, we have a team of over 30 men and women who help in providing other non-material support and also material support, like mentoring these children, life coaching, counseling, and guiding them, modeling them in their life journey. And let me say, for the last 2 decades, we have seen great success, because helping those orphaned and poor children, we have seen many of them shed off the shell of poverty, or they shed off the shell of poverty, because we believe when a child gets education is the key to a lot of things, or is the key to success in life. So we have seen children become technicians, we have seen electricians, we have seen them become engineers, we have seen them become teachers, we have seen them become lawyers, we have seen them become, anything any other child who is well oppressed can become. So I want to say, giving our time and money and resources for others, I think it's the greatest thing somebody can do. And I want to say that has really energized us. In this country, for the time I stayed here for 5 years, I have friends who we have teamed with, who have been coming to see what's going on in Kenya, the specific children who they sponsor and whose their friends sponsor, visit them in their home, visit them in their schools, and walk that journey and listen to them. And I want to say it has been very, very helpful and very encouraging.
How do the children come to your organization in Kenya? Do they seek you out, or are you seeking out families?
Yes. I think for now, because we have been in operation for quite some time, we are known. We are known by what we do. The government of Kenya knows us. People from communities and churches and all over, they know us. But at the same time, we have our children in very many schools in Kenya. So when we visit them, we learn from the teachers, or we learn from the community. We have an office back home in Kenya. So people will come to the office and tell us there's a child who needs help. 2 days ago, an abandoned child, a 3-year-old child who was abandoned in a little town, was brought to the home. And that way, people get to know. So we have the networks, and we also go to the field to verify among the bunch of poor children here, who is the most needy, because again, you may not be able to help each and everyone. So we get the most needy of them all, and then we put them through the program. And with the $35 we receive from a sponsor from the States or from other part of the world, we stretch that dollar to provide school supplies, to provide school levies, to buy clothes, we buy shoes, to provide food, and that money is stretched into the life of that child, and we have seen a great change.
So $35 a month,
yes,
helps support a child pretty much through everything that they need in Kenya. That's hard to believe when you think about the cost of living here, but I guess that makes sense. When you receive the $35, are you helping only children that are living in your homes, or are you also helping children that are living in their own homes but going to the school?
Yes. There are some other children. We have our own home, but we have other children we sponsor who are not living in our home. They are living with their guardians, with their relatives. And in a family, you are not there alone. So what we do is every month we buy food. Food is subsidy, because it's subsidizing for their food. Because if you live in a family that has 10, that food may not be enough. So we subsidize. And it's a good subsidy, because when we started doing that, we saw the health of the children and even the health of that family, change. We see their health status, come up, and you can see it. You can own it by the way they look.
Are they the parents of the children? Have some of them abandoned the children?
Yes, we have several categories of children. There are those who come from very dysfunctional homes, and the dysfunctional homes are all over, such that you find the only person who takes care of that child is a grandmother. We have children who are taken care of by a single mama or a single dad. We also have children, in some cases, who have no parent at all, who have no guardians. Their parents are not there. Those are the ones we take at our children's home. And again, you find children in poverty. You have all your parents, but you are poor. I don't know how poverty comes, because sometimes you find you are born in that poverty cycle and you are not able to get out. But we believe with education, when we empower them through education and with the skills, life and other technical skills, they'll be able to get out, and they'll change themselves and change the generation, and eventually change the country.
And you experienced this yourself, is that correct?
Yes. I grew in a family of 15 children. And
15?
Yes.
Wow.
And my father and my mother and my stepmother they were not rich people. So we depended upon food grown from the garden. So 15 people with the parents who have no job, who are only doing gardening and who have nothing much. It was so difficult. Many times I remember I went without food. There was no food to eat. And when you don't have food to eat, it's not good. It
Right.
bites you. The hunger bites you hard,
Right.
and an experience you cannot forget. So I agree with those experiences. You have no comfort at night. There is no blanket. We call it blanket. You have no enough blanket to cover yourself at night. It was too cold for me. At the times you have to wake up at the middle of the night to make fire, so that at least you can get warm, because you have no comforter.
Right.
So many times you are sent out of away from school because your father or your parents have not paid the levies. So I agree with those images. So it was very bitter for me. So I felt when I grew up, and I felt like I would want to get into this fight. I would want to get into the fight, into helping those children who are in the condition that I was when I was growing up, because it wasn't good. It was not good. But I'm glad that you may not be able to help everybody, but at least I have given myself for a few.
Absolutely. So, McGee, this is where, so your partnership through Kinney Connection here in the States is Mars Hill Presbyterian.
Yes.
And McGee, you're a member at Mars Hill Presbyterian. Also are you? Or that's what you do Kinney Connection through there?
Yes.
Okay. And then you're a retired school teacher.
Yes.
A very good retired school teacher. I can tell. I just know these things. And you still do some part-time work.
Yes, I
with
do.
with the students. So tell me a little bit about how all this got started through Mars Hill.
It was an interesting day when a young African American entered the doors of Mars Hill Presbyterian, and he had walked to the church from a location down the way. And I tell the story because he had this drive to come here to get a seminary education. At that time, only 1 out of every 700 ministers in Kenya had any sort of formal education. So he felt led to come here to go to school, and then wished to go home and start a Bible college to share that information with others. So the long story is that Mars Hill sponsored him through his seminary, and when he went back home to start his Bible school and he saw all of the orphans and the very poor children who were abandoned on the street sometime, who had been abused or whatever, he realized he would have to postpone that dream of the Bible college because it was the children that needed to become the priority for him.
Well, let's go back to the story you told when we weren't recording.
Okay.
Of how he got here down to Atlanta.
Right. Well, he spent a lot of time trying to convince his wife that he needed to come to America, and that trip stretched out to 5 years. But so he had received an invitation to attend a Bible conference in Tennessee. He had no idea where this was, but he had $5 in his pocket by the time he reached Tennessee. And at the end of the Bible conference, someone stood up and said, "We have a bus that's going to Atlanta in the morning. Would anyone like a ride to Atlanta?" Well, Humphrey came here with no knowledge of any sort of seminary or how you would apply or how much it cost or anything else. So he raised his hand. And actually, that bus arrived at the Big Chicken, and they woke him up. And they said, well, you may want to get off out here before you get all the way into Atlanta. So he had a phone number in his pocket of some friend, some Kenyan who lived in America. That's all he knew. And he called the guy and he lived 5 minutes from the Big Chicken.
Oh, wow.
And they came and picked him up, and anyway, he ended up renting a house or he actually rented a laundry room in the basement of a home for a while, and he walked to Mars Hill Church, and that's where it all started. He came expecting nothing, because it's not in their culture that someone would support you to do this.
Sure.
He was going to find a way, and he took a job washing cars, and he walked from Ackworth to Kennesaw to do that.
Wow. Just getting it done. Just got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
No excuses.
No excuses.
Didn't blame society.
No,
Didn't blame.
no.
Didn't blame your parents.
Nobody
didn't-
owed me anything.
Yeah. That's refreshing, actually. So we start we have Start Kenny Connection after all that.
Yes.
And then Mars Hill is kind of the home base. But you're talking with other organizations as well. You recently told me you were with an organization down in Florida, met with 10 people,
Yes.
and came back with 4 sponsorships.
Yes, I think like when most of our children are sponsored by individuals who are my friends.
Yes.
And with the friendship, there are always connections. This one, this. Somebody connects you with the family. So when I visited Florida last time, a friend and connected me with a sister. So the sister organized friends from a neighborhood to come and listen to me, and she had already a sense that some from the neighborhood want to sponsor a child. So that's how I was able to speak to the 14 people, and 4 kids got sponsored. I have friends. I also and friends in Colorado Springs who do ministry in Kenya through us. That is a team of doctors. Their mission is not the children, but it is the sick.
Yeah.
But when they came home and saw the children in our children's home and met with them and saw how the kids are doing, how happy they are, how their lives are changing, some of them felt touched to extend a hand and sponsor kids. So that's how it went. That's how it all goes.
Right.
It is a friend to tell a friend, and when you observe with your own eyes, you make your own judgment.
Right.
Yes.
So, McGee, you've made 4 trips to Kenya. Were each of those centered around the children's homes and the building of those originally, or what was the purpose?
The first one, we actually did get to, dig the septic tank and watch the building construction and assist with that. Each of the other times we've gone, we, of course, always want to connect with our own personal children, but we'll have specific goals for each mission trip. It might be, in this case, we've had a really generous donation of school supplies, not just notebooks and everything, but teaching supplies, and we're going to be shipping those over. So there's always some sort of mission that revolves around caring for our kids over there.
So what percentage of the children do you feel like are in poverty in Kenya right now? Do you know that statistic?
I know. I may not give that statistics. I don't know. I may not get to. I'm not very sure of the demographics, but I only know a few things. That in Kenya right now, on average, an average person in Kenya lives in like $2 per day. So when you live in $2 per day, you already can tell.
Yeah.
What when you cascade to the grassroots, what that
So the
means.
average person's making $2 a day.
Yes,
is that what you're saying?
I think that's
So maybe everybody's in poverty.
most people are in poverty, and like the unemployment rate is 60%. Is 60%.
Only 60% employed.
Yes, the
Okay.
country is big in education. People are encouraged to go to school, but still you find even after high school, after college, there are no jobs to do. So we are at this 60 unemployment rate. So that what that means to the economy.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Absolutely. If we were going to a college or a seminary or wherever we might be wanting to attend, we typically do a little research first, and we try to talk to alumni. So we say, "Hey, you went here. Was it worth it?" McGee, you have a letter from an alumni. Why don't you read that to us?
Okay, I've got a piece of a letter here from a little girl named Melody that was in our program for over 10 years. And Melody didn't have an individual sponsor, but she was sponsored by a Sunday school class at a Methodist church in Calhoun, Georgia. So what she wrote is I promise you guys that I will do all that I can to ensure that this legacy of spreading hope and love that you have passed to me lives on. As you have dedicated a part of your lives to me by keeping me in school, I believe that I too will do the same for someone else. It is an awesome energy that you have fed into my life, and I want to fuel it and spread it.
That's great.
Yeah, we started with the Melody when she was in grade 5. Now she is a second year. At the university, pursuing a bachelor's degree in community development.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's great. And then, and who's paying for her college?
The sponsor.
The sponsor.
Yeah, they are helping her with
Tuition.
with the tuition and upkeep.
That's great. So
Yes.
what I'm getting from this program is, from your program, is you're actually able to connect with the child that you're sponsoring. And
Yes.
I assume that there's not always success stories, that
Yes.
there's people who
Sure.
make bad decisions because we're
Yes.
human and we have free will.
That's true.
And you have to work through that. But at the same time, you're probably helping
Yes.
more. There's probably more success stories than not
Yes.
success stories,
Yes.
if I had to guess.
We have challenges because when you're dealing with over 300 children, it's like a family.
Right.
The dynamics you find in a normal family, those are the dynamics we have. We have kids who will be very obedient and who will listen to what we are saying and will be successful. But at the same time, you have others who have eyes but they don't see, and
Right.
they will give you some trouble. But in the most part, we have a bigger percentage of those who will listen because we have a team of them who have made it through high school and through college, and others are now in the university, and others are finished, and others are working. We have teachers. So we have the difficult ones too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
There's always a situation of the boyfriend comes along and then we need to run to Nairobi and, those sorts of situations like all teenagers,
Right.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Humphrey he has very strict rules, and that's one of the things about the organization is that, the children are raised to be not only Christians, but just to have the same type of ethics that he does. And he works hard to find the type of people that work in the organization that serve as role models. So they counsel them and try everything they can and give them multiple opportunities and even forgiveness if they wish to re-enter the program, and can show that they're sincere about it,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's great. It sounds like you're a beacon of light in an area that would probably be a lot of depression and not a whole lot of hope, or if anything, going to other bad organizations, bad groups of people that would, drug trades, things like that,
yeah.
that tend to have resources that would take people down the wrong path. So,
Thank you.
but yeah, getting to know the person that you're sponsoring, I think that's unique to what you guys are doing as opposed to general donations. Okay. Well, anything else you'd like to share with us while you're here?
I want to say we are so grateful to our friends and sponsors and the UKC for letting us be here today. As again, I want to say I am here this time. We work with objectives, not with goals. I'm here in this country for the 3 months because I want to do a book promotion tour, The Journey Against All Odds and Liberating to Win. Those are the 2 books that I've authored in the last few years. We are also trusting that we are going to get people who will sponsor children, because it's a model we have tried and it has worked. We are also looking into building a children's home in Kenya. A children's home costs like $5,000 US. We are now we are trusting God to build our next 5th home, because we want to do this.
And the cost of building a home is how much?
$5,000. Yes. The model we have in mind is 50,000.
50,000. Okay, that makes more sense.
$50,000 US dollars.
Okay.
So that's the model that we have, and the 4th one is now complete. We are now focusing on the 5th one because we want to do this.
Yeah. So, if you want to support this organization, Kenyan Connection Kids, you can do that through Mars Hill Presbyterian. You can go to their website. We'll put that in our show link. You can make a donation there, and there's a drop down for Kenyan Connection Kids. And then I'll also give you the contact for McGee Spencer here with us today. Her email will be in the show notes if you have more questions or want to reach out to Humphrey as well. But Humphrey, you're doing an amazing work.
Thank you, Sam.
I am always energized when I meet people like you, because I feel like we live in a society now where everyone blames somebody for something and everyone's looking for free handouts. And you are a person who is literally not only came out of adversity yourself, but is now reaching back and helping other people come out of adversity. And I think that's very energizing to me.
Thank you.
And so thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
And again, you came here. You're in the States until when?
November 29th.
November 29th.
Yes.
Then you go back to Kenya you come here about every other year.
Yes, that's true.
Your goal in this trip was to get 50 sponsors.
Yes.
So to sponsor 50 kids at $35 a month. Sounds like you've gotten 12, 14 of those so far.
We have quite a number of them.
30. You've gotten 30. So we have 30 sponsors. We have 20 sponsors left to achieve your goal.
Yes.
For that. So that's great. That's great success. Great. That's a great trip.
Yes, it is. It is.
Okay. Look at the show notes for more information. And thank you both for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Casey.
Thanks for listening to the Wiser Roundtable podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening. That way you don't miss out on new episodes. Head to wiserinvestor.com and reach out if you have any questions. We would love to hear from you. Today's episode was produced and edited by Lilton Moore.